Welcome to the Healthcare Tech Pulse podcast. This is episode 8. I think we just established. So yeah, we've been going for a while now, and as I think we were just talking about actually the purpose of why we did this, and really, as well as both Jonathan and myself benefit a lot from talking to people, we wanted to highlight a kind of a niche area actually. So just within healthcare, looking at VR, AR and AI technologies and how it's being used. And there's a lot of work that goes on, and I don't think a lot of people see it. They might benefit from it, but a lot of people do some really amazing work, like our two guests today, who will introduce themselves shortly. With me is my co-host Jonathan, as always. And yeah, today we've got a couple of guests from Virti. Is that the correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Nils and Luke. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Maybe start with Nils.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Nils Hellberg. I'm the CTO of Virti. I'm originally from Sweden, as you might be able to hear, but I live in the UK since about 15 years back in Bristol. And my background is in sort of corporate IT work, building backends for big companies. And then I did a couple of startups. So I worked with everything from blockchain to BitTorrent. Went into games development, which is where I started exploring XR and VR. And that sort of led me to Virti when I saw Alex Young, our founder, do a very early pitch at an event in Bristol. And, took all the stuff I've learned from games and started building medical simulations back then. Hand over to Luke.
Nice. Yeah. Hi, I'm Luke Willett. I'm Director of Go-to-Market Sales here at Virti. My background is nowhere near as exotic as Nils, unfortunately. I'm from the UK, born and bred. And yeah, I've been at Virti for probably about 4 years. So I joined sort of not long after the kind of company had been founded. My background, I've been in sales for sort of the last 10, 12 years, something like that. Always with a bit of a people focus. So I've done kind of more HRE, tech focused things. Obviously now here at Virti, very much focused on training and learning, but always been that sort of how do we help improve human performance, which is exactly the mission here at Virti and one of the reasons why I joined, right? So yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Actually, just to expand on what you just started talking about, what do Virti do?
Nils, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we're an online training platform where it's important to say that so we give anyone the tools to build training. So primarily soft skills training and communication training, but you can also use video, either as 2D videos or 360 videos in XR and a VR headset to do more like hard skills training. But we started out with medical training. So it was very much a case of trying to reduce like time wasting in the NHS. Like I haven't got a medical background, although my mother was a nurse, so maybe it's somewhere deeply within me. I could see some of these issues in Sweden as well. But our founder, he's an ex-orthopedic surgeon, and he found, especially moving hospitals and stuff, there was a lot of tick box exercises, stuff you had to do, trainings you had to retake and everything. And when he experienced VR for the first time, he was like, yeah, we can do a lot of this stuff in VR and save everybody's time, right? And then that quickly led into things like other soft skills scenarios, like patient communication, what was a big one. And with VR and 360 videos in particular, just getting that empathy and the immersion. So I think like one of the most powerful things we did early on was sort of, telling someone they've got terminal cancer, and we set up some actors and stuff, and you had to experience that from the nurse's perspective in VR, which was super powerful. And building on that, we then launched our second product, which was more driven by the user. So a dialogue system using what we call virtual humans. So using like sort of old school NLP technology, you could talk to the virtual human and get replies back. Everything quite cumbersome to set up because this was pre ChatGPT and large language models. So we had to define like everything basically you could talk about and set up a canned response for that and have like loads of complex branching storylines and things like this. But then a few years ago, when GPT exploded onto the market, immediately, we were like, we can really use this to basically expand and have any sort of conversations and any sort of soft skills training, and that's where we sort of really expanded our use cases for the product. And I think it's about the same time Luke came into the company, I think, and now we do everything from still do medical, but we do things like sales training, HR training, and everything. Right, Luke?
Is it mainly VR type environments, or do you desktop training and everything, the whole shebang? Okay.
Nils can probably talk about the exact split between what our customers use in terms of the modality of training content, but no, it's a combination of VR, web-based, and some mobile as well, right? And that was actually probably a bit of a design decision, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but you guys will know from your own experiences of VR, it is a brilliant modality to access training content. We did our own research study when we started the business around, how does it affect people's performance? And there's loads of great results around how much it, I think 230% knowledge retention, about 50% reduction in skill fade. So we did our own, scientific trial on that piece, but it was then, and it still can be quite difficult in terms of adoption and scaling it, right? So one of the things we always wanted to do is provide access to the desktop, so the same experience on a desktop and on a mobile device. Really, we see a world where people are using VR in almost like a simulation setting, and it immerses people in the environment, but then the next day or a week later, they can go home and do the same experience on a desktop version or on a mobile, so that they can repeat the training. And that's the other key bit to improving people's learning outcomes, right? Is repetition. So it's cross-modality.
Yeah. No. Yes, to add quickly, very, very much what Luke said. And I think, in our ideal customer will have some sort of setup for VR. And I think that's one of the nice things working with things like hospitals. They often do have, simulation centers and training centers, and they have the resources to, set up a few rooms with virtual reality headsets in, hopefully. And then people can do the training there, but then they can go home and, repeat it whenever they want on their laptop or on their phone.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting shift, and what you mentioned, it's still kind of going on. Where I often describe VR or that industry as, I think AI came along and overtook it long ago, but it's kind of like a plane which is trying to take off the runway. It's not quite making it, so you get a little bit, then come down again, and it's up and down like this. And it's a bit sad really, because I know initially that there's always the intent to just offer VR, and I even some companies I worked with, we tried to implement it. I tried to move away from don't offer anything else. Otherwise, people would always go for the easiest, cheapest option, no matter how much. Like, well, why do I need to do it? I can do it like this. This is costing me $1 a month. You're charging me God knows how much for that. So the benefits are very hard. But I think sometimes that in the high impact areas it is more demonstrable, right? Because then every stat you're showing is amplified. So in a safety arena, for example, if you are able to show that somebody can retain information better, it means they're going to be safer. Although it is hard to demonstrate on the other side that that's the case, but it's more powerful message. So maybe that's the way things are now. That you have to kind of have it as part of a package. It doesn't have the legs to stand on its own, which is a bit unfortunate, I think, because I'm quite passionate about it. And it's sad to see it, but it's the same everywhere, I think.
And it is very different from customer to customer, right? So we do some business with some of the bigger medical centers in the US, and they got a lot of resources, so they will push every student to come in, and we have like 30 people in a room, all in VR headsets. But then you speak to other smaller institutions, other customers, where it's just not really feasible.
Is it do you find it quite hard to convince, even with stats, that it's tough? It's a tough sell.
Yeah, I think it's it's not a tough sell in terms of like showing people why it's a good modality to train people. Where it's a tough sell, or where it's tough, is the adoption piece when it comes to scaling it, right? So getting 5 headsets is cool. It works really well. And there's lots of great companies out there that package them up into like nice little containers that are self-contained and charging and all those types of stuff. Scaling that up to 100, 200, thousands of headsets is a task, and that's the challenge. And that's, when we're thinking about customers that we work with, that, they're often people that employ thousands of people. So that, it's not always easy to do that type of thing.
Is actually that gap that I tried to fill, and with it was quite moderate success, kind of, I'd say, or some ups, some downs with it, because of the uptake generally of the software. So I tried to develop an implementation funnel which showed people how it, because people seem to treat, I don't know why they treat this as a different to any other project they would run. So that you still have to demonstrate value, you still need to show what's happening. I think there's a lot of excitement at the beginning, and then when that goes, then people then you're just left with without any evidence, or unable to answer any questions as to why you need this, and that's where it kind of it falls over a bit. So yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
But there are some great customers that have done it really well. The one that springs to mind outside of healthcare is St. James's Place, who are a wealth management company. So they provide financial services advice to all sorts of people. And they've done a great job of scaling XR. And one of the ways they've done that is creating hubs around the country. So in all of their offices, up and down the country, there are maybe 3 or 4 headsets in a particular location that you can go and book out and rent to access the training. And they, it's all preloaded on there. Now, SJPs in this place have the luxury of having an immersive technology manager. So somebody whose whole job is focused on how do we get people using this to improve their learning. Not every company is going to have that. It's often left down to the individual, right? Whether it be the L&D person or someone like that. There are some cool little tweaks that you can do for sure to help adoption, but again, it all comes down to the company themselves, right?
That is an important one, because I think often some people try to do it as a side job or moonlighting doing it, right? If you have dedicated, that's how important it is because the business change aspect is quite big, and again, people don't think about it. You're changing a culture, the way people, nobody's used to having a big lump of plastic on their heads, and we're still, I know the glasses are there, but we're not there yet. So it's something you have to work people through to help them.
And I think it's very much finding various use cases as well, right? If we try to get a company or an institution to use VR headsets just for Virti, and that's all they're going to use it for, it's going to get pretty cumbersome, right? You need it to, and I think this is where VR sort of lost out a little bit. Like it was touted as becoming like the next mobile phone. You can issue a headset to all employees, and I think price wise and stuff, like a Meta headset isn't super expensive, but unless it's being picked up and used every day for various things, you don't get the uptake, and then you have like a uncharged device sitting on the table, and then you have to do your training like once a month, and it's not really feasible.
So going on to other modalities then, one thing, so I've used Virti a few times, not extensively yet because of my job role really, but one thing that I found that makes it ultra accessible is the recent change to the AI generated human. So just for people listening, basically it's a no code system. So I mean this happened last week. I was able to go in and create a scenario for a conversation between a booking clerk in a hospital and a patient to allow them to practice breaking bad news. In other words, really sorry, but your operation tomorrow has been cancelled. This is a scenario that we know causes significant stress. People hate breaking bad news. That took me 10 minutes from start to finish on a laptop. 10 minutes later, I was in a room with my phone with a head of corporate education running this scenario. They'd never seen it before, but they know how to use a phone. So they were there 10 minutes later practicing this conversation, and at the end of it, it told them how it did, how they did, which is remarkable. So in terms of barriers to entry, for me, I don't think I've actually used Virti on a headset. I think I've only used it on my laptop and on a phone.
Well, you're about to be blown away when you do try it. It is a
Really?
great. It is a different experience. It is, you know, that's slightly more immersive in it. You know, one of the things you're doing there, Jonathan, even with the mobile experience, is giving people a safe space to practice that conversation. And I think the headset goes a little, one or half a step further than that, in the sense of, like, it does block out the outside world for a short period, and you do become very focused on the discussion at hand. So it does help, but you're absolutely right. Like, the barrier to entry is completely lowered when we can offer it on a mobile or tablet. We've got some customers that will just send out tablets, because it's cheaper and much easier to do as well. So that's how we're going to get mass adoption of the actual software and improving people's learning outcomes.
And it's definitely where we see more like user-led engagement. Like, if you're someone who's been given access to the tool by management or something, if you can just pick up your phone or launch it on your tablet, you will do that rather than being told to go and put a headset on.
Are you finding people are seeing the opportunities for adoption? Are you? I mean, I seem to see Virti everywhere. The kind of conversations that you could use it to practice. And I mean, this all started when I met you last year at a conference, and we were talking about the assisted dying bill, and we've never had those conversations before. That's what it kicked off for me. But then we've gone on to end of life care with a hospice. I'm looking at potentially using this for, as I say, the booking clerks. Today, I've been training preceptors and preceptees. These are newly qualified staff. There's a use case there for people who need to coach preceptees through transition. So have you got like people that you work with who develop the tool across an organization, or do you have to go and do quite a lot of that yourself?
Yeah, I'll let Luke answer this, but it is an interesting thing, because it's almost like a double-edged sword where you can use Virti for so many different things. So sometimes it's almost hard to sell it, and you like tell people, what is your platform? Oh, it's a platform you can use for everything. It's not really like it's not always easy to convince people that they need it. But then when they start using it, as you say, they very quickly see a myriad of use cases.
Yeah, exactly that point. To sort of maybe answer your question directly, we don't have a specific job role at the moment that is, right, you go in now, help seed this and feed it into the organization in some way. The nice thing about the platform is, as you know, Jonathan, it's very self-service. Like, you don't need certainly any coding skills, but you don't even really need a huge amount of content creation experience in that sense either. A very simple 1 or 2 sentence prompt into the platform will come up with a decent role play for you to practice. So we do it through the onboarding process. But yeah, to Nils's point, it can also spiral out of control, because people are a bit like, oh, we could do this, and I can see it for this and that. And yeah, you have to try and bring people back and just think about the core problem that they're trying to use it to solve, and then you can start to scale it out. We're real big fans of crawl, walk, run when it comes to adoption of this type of thing. But yeah,
it's tempting to become a bit like a kid in a sweet shop with these kind of things. There's so much you could do with it. Where's the technology going next? Because I think particularly in terms of the avatars, what's going on with that and things like deepfakes and stuff?
Yeah, so as you said, there's been an interesting shift from the sort of CGI 3D avatars which you obviously need in VR, right? Because you can move around 6 degrees of freedom and everything. And then towards a more desktop only experience where we use some of the latest generation video deepfakes or video avatars, which are good. You know, like I think most people coming into the platform like the video avatars. And they look very realistic. It's similar to things like Synthesia, if people have seen that. That being said, though, because everything has to be in real time generation, because you want the conversation to flow smoothly, they do still lack subtle emotions, and you know, the face has some expressions, but the body will often be in a fixed position or a fixed loop. So that is very much where we're exploring new tech at the moment to do more of like emotional range, especially if you're doing, you know, training around empathy and things. You want the avatar not to be too static.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, is there any shift towards things like reading facial expressions, reading body language, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so to do it
Sorry,
from
I'm
the
asking you
use,
to give stuff away here. Sorry.
no, to do it from the user, you know, like we can activate the webcam and pick up on their side of things. That's actually easier than translating that to the avatar. At the moment, if we would like to set off an experience with someone who's in distress, for example, but then have them maybe be calmed down and more peaceful, that is not really feasible with a video avatar. It's wherever they are at the beginning of discussion is where it will stay for the rest of it.
Okay. And from a technical perspective, what I mean, have you got people hosting it themselves? Does that solve the latency issue, or does not really make a difference?
We use a wide array of different model providers and different service providers, and it's all hosted in the cloud. You could self-host it, but with these latest technologies, it takes a lot of processing power and GPU power. So what we'll do is we'll try to deploy the solution as close to the customer as possible, and then we sort of mix and match different technologies. So if latency is extremely important, we might choose a voice only model where it's actually, you know, you talk back and forth, you can do interruptions and everything like that. If you need the visual things, you will trade some of that latency, and you have to translate text to speech and vice versa, and then apply it to the video. So it depends on the use cases.
Cool.
I think just going back to your earlier question as well about where do you see this going, I think we're happy to share this, but the other thing that I'm super excited about that we will get to at some point in the platform is like conversation memory as well. So Jonathan, using your like you know, clerk booking use case, right? Imagine that conversation, but you've already had a discussion with the patient last week when they booked, right? And the system remembers the conversation that you had, so that when you then do the follow-up conversation, it's got the additional context to it. And you're now starting to get, and you can imagine how complex that could get if you had 3 or 4 scenarios, or it's building on the role play. And that all just adds to the realism of like, actually, that's what it's like. You know, you might talk to a patient 3 or 4 times before you do the real hard bit, or the conversation changes as you go through that role play, right? So yeah, and then we get into the whole realm of, well, how do we then personalize that to the individual and those types of things. So I think that's the bit that I'm really excited about, is that kind of just-in-time personalized piece where you've got the context of previous conversations as well.
Yeah, the personalization is massive, right? If the system can know, Jonathan, how you interact with everything and what is your weaknesses and what is your strengths, and if that just automatically is applied to any scenario, I think that is super powerful. And you know, as you said, like it takes like, say, 10 minutes to build up a decent scenario, right? We can probably get that down to a few minutes, and then every learner can go in and hey, this is happening to me in 20 minutes. I have to deliver bad news, and here's all the context. And then you can immediately basically spin up a training session, so you get to practice before it happens.
Yeah,
massively powerful. Yeah.
it is. Yeah, yeah. So I'll just following on actually from what you just started there about the future. Where do you see what key things you see things happening either in the industry or what you guys have planned, that you can share about the direction you're going to go in now, looking at the next 5, 10 years, anything like that.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a lot about personalization, customization. Usage of data is probably the big thing, which is tricky, like from a security and compliance and PII point of view. But I think if you look at AI and large language models, we've reached a point where the foundation models, like the big models from GPT and Gemini and Claude, they are good enough now so they can handle everything. Like we might not reach AGI with them, but for our intents and purposes, they are there. And what gets really interesting now is how instead of using them as these general models that know everything and have all of internet's knowledge and can be an assistant, how do we slim them down and make them super specific, right? So that's in my mind, that's very much tying them up into existing platforms and services, so we can pull in all the necessary data to deliver a personalized experience, and then feed that data back into the systems and sort of become a little organism inside your existing setup and process all of that.
What's crazy at it as well is that, like, and this is probably Nils's thing that keeps him awake at night, I guess, but is we actually just don't know as well, like what's going to happen in 6 months' time when it comes to AI, right? It could, OpenAI or Google or whoever it is could bring something out that could change the game again. And that's an exciting thing, but also a worrying thing for a smallish startup who are constantly trying to adapt and build our moat and all those types of things. But that's the joy of it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So just probably last question, I think, for you. Wrap this up now. Really, for people listening, if they're interested in training or bringing training to their company, how should they go about it? Or even with VR to understand, particularly, I guess, in that area, whether it's for them or what steps can they take, or how can they prepare or understand why they need a change?
Yeah, well, firstly, they should go to the Virti website, www.virti.com, and have a look. But no, lovely. More broadly, and it's quite interesting because we've just been on a call with a large jewelry retailer, global retailer, who have just signed up as a customer this morning. And the thing that we always say to all prospective customers or anybody who's just starting in this space is, like, really think about the objective that you're trying to achieve and linking that back to a business challenge or a patient scenario or whatever it is. That is really the first place to start. And until you've got that really crafted, don't even start to think about, like, what's the modality? Should I do this on XR or tablet or mobile or whatever it is? Because actually, if you haven't got that first bit nailed down, the rest of it doesn't really matter, right? And, like, as a prime example, the role play or AI role play piece, really great if you're trying to scale conversation training, soft skills training, and if you're trying to create those safe spaces. The immersive video side of our platform is really great at scaling hard to reproduce, difficult, unsafe environments. Trying to align your kind of, does that type of thing solve the challenge that I've got? Then great, you've got something to work from that point. And then there's people, like yourself or us, who will help guide customers on what's the right thing to do in this space. What's the right way to do this? How could you build it? What does that look like in terms of, do we use VR? Sometimes you don't need VR. Sometimes it may just be a 2D video that explains that with a virtual human at the end. Sometimes it is, oh no, you're going to need a 360 experience here to really immerse somebody in the environment, those types of things. That's probably my kind of advice to anyone listening who's just thinking about, oh, I want to explore XR and see its benefits, we've got to do that kind of legwork at the start to make sure it's well aligned, right?
And get it into the hands of users as soon as possible. I think it's probably better to build, you know, a few 80% things and get some feedback and get people trying them out, rather than trying to perfect one thing and 100% it, and then you share it with people and they say, oh, actually I don't really like VR.
That's good. Yeah. And I think that's what we were saying at the start. That it's you know, you treat it any differently to any other project, right? You always have to have a why. What's your business case? Why are you doing it? You just dive in there and worry about, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. Yeah, why are you doing it? Because it always comes to bite you if you don't.
Yeah, you'd be amazed at how many people still come to us though with like I'm interested in VR and just want to use VR, and I get it, you know, or AI in that sense, or the role play stuff. They're like, oh, I just know I should be using kind of AI to deliver the learning. You know, it just makes everyone's life harder if we do it that way. But yeah, starting with why is a really good piece of advice, I think. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, guys, for your time. It's been very insightful. It's good. It's very interesting to see how things work from. I think we've talked to people who are often recipients of perhaps the things you produce and how they've been using it. See the other side of it. It's been really, really fascinating. So thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.